How you doing, folks? In this video I'm going to remove the cylinder head from this 1980 MGB behind me here. Yes folks, that's right, I'll be removing the cylinder head on this, and the reason being is that if you looked at my last video you will have seen that I did a compression test on the engine and found that although cylinders 1 and 4 had about 135 psi, cylinders 2 and 3 were both very low at about 50-55, and when I did a kind of a rudimentary leak down test I could see that the air from my compressor was going in the spark plug port of number 2 and coming out of number 3. So what that basically means is that the section of head gasket between the two cylinders is gone. So what I need to do is I need to get that head off and I need to replace it. Now I do have another cylinder head which has been converted for unleaded fuel, so if this head hasn't been done, which I strongly suspect it hasn't, I will be using that cylinder head. So I'll be doing a cylinder head swap as well as the head gasket. I also have a full top end seal kit for this engine as well. So the likes of the inlet and exhaust manifold gaskets and rocker cover gaskets and all that will be getting changed as well. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. The first thing to do is to drain the oil and coolant out of the engine. Now I only just filled this engine with fresh oil, so what I'm actually going to do is I have the side cut off a new oil container and I'm actually going to put that oil back in there, and provided that it's not completely minging, like, you know, I mean, I'm going to put it back into the engine. I didn't even run the engine with that new oil in it, so I don't see the problem with doing that. And as far as the coolant is concerned, I'm going to be flushing the coolant system as well, so it'll be getting all new coolant and everything. First things first, let's get that oil out. Okay, so as the oil is draining out there, which it's actually nearly finished, we're gonna take off our bottom radiator hose. Now earlier MGBs would have had a valve in the bottom of the radiator, but unfortunately this one doesn't, so it's just a case of pulling the bottom hose. Not exactly a major ordeal, but still needs to be done nonetheless. Now we can do it without getting coolant all over the place. Better again. I have my doubts though. Come on. Oh, come on. There we go. That coolant is actually very, very clean. Definitely a good sign. I'll show you now in a second. Although, mind you, the bucket that it went into is not exactly the cleanest. So, let's just open the thermostat housing and make sure we get all the water out of the engine itself. So I'll get a channel locks for that. Might not even need a flush. It certainly wasn't, even though the head gasket's gone, it certainly wasn't showing any signs of overheating when I took it for a short drive. I left it running before I brought it out, and the thermostat, or the temperature gauge didn't even get up to halfway actually. So that's very positive. And that didn't help the situation at all. I was expecting a bit more water to pour out of it then. Anyway, not to worry. Right, so next thing to do is put the oil drain plug back in. The majority of the events will be taking place on the left side of the car where the carbs and the exhaust are, bearing in mind this isn't a cross-flow engine. But what I do need to do is take this thermostat housing off and the heater valve as well. Now a lot of the time those nuts put up a fight, but by the looks of things everything's so clean in here. Now I'm going to give it a little bit of a spray with WD-40 just to give us a bit of a fighting chance. And we'll start disconnecting things and kind of work our way around the engine, and then we can kind of start focusing in on the likes of the rocker shaft, and then start taking the head bolts out. It's really not a big job taking the head off one of these, being that it's a push rod engine. I know people always tell me WD-40 is water displacement and it's the 40th version. I know all of that, by the way. But the thing about it is a light oil as well, and it does actually lubricate. So say what you want, but it does the trick most of the time. I mean, there are better products out there for this particular purpose, but for the purpose of this exercise, we're going to use WD-40, okay? So don't get your panties in a bunch, folks, okay? You know, it's funny because with this car, there are things that are suggesting to me that it actually is really a low mileage car. And there's other things that are suggesting to me that it isn't as low mileage as the odometer suggests. But either way, it's been well looked after. I mean, but the fact that these came out so easily suggests to me that we're onto a winner with it. Even if the head gasket is gone. But the head gasket can go because of age, you know. I mean, if it's been sitting up for a good long time and only been driven periodically, that could certainly contribute to a problem. But to me, it looks like the stat housing has been off because there's a new Jubilee clip on there. So what I'm doing is I'm bagging up, I have a set of sandwich bags, and I'm going to put all of the nuts and bolts and washers and everything into separate sandwich bags labelled so I know exactly where to go. Now, it's only aluminium, folks. Don't go bananas on these, okay? Come on. There we go. Didn't put up too much of a fight. And yeah, I have a new gasket for that anyway as well, so that really doesn't matter. Somebody's been in here before, as I said. So, let's put that there, pull our stat out. Likelihood is they were in here before to replace the thermostat. That may be the reason why the head gasket's gone, actually, is because of the fact that the thermostat got stuck and the engine overheated. So, not beyond the realms of possibility, but I'm just theorising, really. So anyway, so that's that off. I'm going to take the radiator, or the heater valve off next. Now here's one that is putting up a fight, is this heater valve. If we can get the 2 bolts out of this without breaking them. That's bloody electrical contact cleaner. Where's my WD-40 gone? If we do get the 2 bolts out of this without them breaking, we're doing very, very well. Worst case scenario, when I take this head off, the machine shop can do it because they will be the ones. This cylinder head is not the one going back on anyway, so it's really just a case of going easy and bit by bit working their way off, working the bolt out. Again, I have a new gasket for this as well. Be a good idea while this is off to flush out the heater matrix too. And you see what I mean, folks? You just have to take your time with these things. If you take your time, you're much less likely to break a bolt. I could have just wanged that out. I could have stuck an impact gun on it. But the likelihood is it would have broke. And then, if I do decide to put this head on, oh my god, the sludge in here. Actually, it's not that bad. It's just there. Somebody's been in here as well, Blue RTV. But yeah, that heater valve is not going to work very well. Anyway, that's a common problem with these, to be honest with you. I'd say they're like that from the bloody factory. Alright, so now I'm going to start by taking off the rocker cover. Get that out of the way. So now that I have the rocker cover off and I've got that pipe out of the way, I'm going to just take off this. This is the crankcase breather pipe. It feeds the crankcase air back into the carbs to be burned again. Next thing is the accelerator and choke cables. Okay, so the choke cable is out. It's just a little barrel clip kind of thing, and the accelerator cable, I can undo this here, the jam nut, and what we need to do is actually screw this one all the way down. This is actually how you adjust the accelerator, but look at, we'll be grand taking it out like this. Now I'm going to take the barrel clip out of the choke, because that's the type of thing that very easily gets lost, and we'll bag them up as well with all of the other carburetor parts. So once that's off all the way, you can lift it up far enough to get the cable out through the notch, and that's basically it. So that's accelerator cable and choke cable removed. I'll put these little bits in the bag so they don't get lost. Right, all that's left to do now is to undo the nuts that hold the carbs onto the manifold, or onto their spacers, and remove the, if you take the carbs off as a pair, you'll keep the linkages together and everything. So, but what I'm going to do while the carbs are off, I'm actually going to take, I'm going to just crack open the float bowls and make sure there's no sediment or any crap in them. It'll be a missed opportunity to do anything else. If they are, we can inspect them while they're off, but the thing about it is, if they need a rebuild, and I don't think they do, but if they do need a rebuild, then we can do that. Even if they just need a clean up and a refresh. Like what we could do is take the dash pots off have a look inside and see how everything is there, you know, if they're kind of both sliding freely and everything like that, because one is certainly taking a lot more time to drop than the other one. Oh, come on. It's too loose for the spanner and too tight for my fingers. Okay, so now we can just lift off the carburetors. You have to remember to disconnect your throttle return spring underneath before you do. And I'm just going to bring these over onto the bench. Alright, so we just retrieve all our gaskets and spacers. And it's the heat shield here. Sneaking suspicion this may be made of asbestos, so I think it actually is, you know, that's why I'm going to be very careful there. Just buzz this bolt out. I may end up changing this one for a non-asbestos one, you know that? That's definitely what that is. Okay, so now we're down to our manifolds. So I first need to take off the brake booster line here, which is fairly handy, and then we can start taking off the nuts for our intake and exhaust manifolds. So now there is a set of nuts in there which are basically, they double up on the intake and exhaust manifolds. So I'm going to just give them a quick spray with WD, and I'm going to just get a ratchet on them, and we're going to see if they crack loose, and if they do, then I can get them out with my electric ratchet. Electric ratchets are one of the handiest tools to have around the shop, and I'm only after getting that a little while ago. It was bought for me as a Christmas present actually, so it was a while ago, but haven't used it a huge amount yet. So I love it though, it's brilliant. Now, you shouldn't need to take the exhaust off itself. The manifold should move back far enough that you can actually that you can get the head out of the way and leave it in place, because if you have to take the exhaust off, it's a whole other headache that you'd be best off avoiding if you can. Alright, so there we go. So they're all cracked loose. We'll get our power ratchet on. And after this, we're really into getting the head bolts loose. Well, I have to take the rocker shaft off first. The stud came out on that one. Not the end of the world. It's when the stud breaks is when you've got a problem. So you have these big thick spacer washers in between the intake and exhaust manifolds. By the way, I meant to mention to you earlier on, it's worth knowing that you don't necessarily need to take the heater valve out of the head or take the thermostat housing off if you're keeping the same head on. It's just the fact that I'm changing the head that's why I took them off. Because it's easier to do while it's on the car because it's not moving around on you. And plus you can keep the heater cable connected. Now, stud came out in that one as well. Anyway, grand. Right, so that's them all loose. I'm going to just bag everything up and we'll retrieve that manifold and pull the exhaust manifold away as well. We still take just one nut still to take off the exhaust manifold. Alright, so there's the intake manifold out. You should be able to just give the exhaust manifold a bit of a rattle, and a lot of a rattle then. You may need a pry bar, and just pull that away from the head, and that should give us enough clearance then. So we'll see how we get on. Let me get a pry bar. There we go. While I'm in this far, I may well take off the crankcase breather piece down there and just check it and make sure it's all clear and clean and everything like that. Just strikes me as a good idea. But right, so that's that. Next thing to do is to take off our rocker shaft. Alright, so taking off the rocker shaft is pretty straightforward. So I'm going to just literally crack these all about half a turn. So that's one. We do front to back. There's 2, 3, and 4. All right, so now take them off the rest of the way now. Okay, the stud came out of that one. Again, it's not really a major problem, but I'd rather it didn't, but sure, there you go. Okay, so there's this little locating tab down the very back. That is for the screw that actually holds the rocker shaft in place from turning. So if you were taking the rocker shaft apart, you'd have to undo that, but we're not going to be doing that in this instance. So that's those 4 out anyway. So I'm going to just bag them up again. And then what we'll do is we'll start cracking our head bolts then. Alright, so in the same way as there's a torquing sequence for torquing down the head, there's a sequence which you should remove them in as well. So you basically go, there's 11 bolts, so you start at the back. I have a better breaker bar, I just don't know where the hell the bloody thing has gone. So we're going to just crack the torque on each of these. I have a ratchet one, like I don't know where the hell it's gone. Okay, so there's 11, and then 10 is down here. Like this is a thing for doing tires. So 10, and then 9 is this one here. Jeez, a bit tight going on there. There we go. Okay, that's them all cracked, so now let's remove them. Alright, so last thing to do now before we take the head off is to remove the rocker shaft and then pull the push rods out. Okay, so the rocker shaft comes out easily enough. Just make sure that we don't pull the push rods out with it, because we need to put them in the right, the correct positioning. Okay, so what I'm doing here now is I'm taking the push rods out, but in order to take the push rods out, what you have to do is you have to make sure they go back in the same place. Okay, so what I've done is I've punched holes in a piece of cardboard and poking them into the holes, and then that'll keep them in the same order. Just make sure you don't pull the cam followers out with them. They're oily. The oil is quite black, but that said, it doesn't smell like real dirty oil. You know, when you have like an engine that, like the other MG, the oil was stinking, whereas in this it's not. Right, so there's our push rods out. So let's put them aside. Okay, so last thing to do is take the head off. So now, a few taps with a mallet. I don't think it's going to come off that easily, but we may have to resort to violence. Let's roll out the big guns. Now, I'm just thinking, oh, look at that there. I forgot something. Temperature sender. Right, okay. So what we need to do is we need to get a pry bar in underneath there. There's a point on the casting where you can kind of get a pry bar and not do any real damage if you're careful enough. Between the alternator bracket and the head. Yeah, see, there you go, she's coming up now. That's all it needed. So right, so let's lift it off. Mind your back, folks. This thing is bloody heavy. Oh. Jesus wept. Okay, need to just get something to try and kind of lever it up a little bit more for me. I'll get the handle of a hammer in underneath it. That might just be enough to stop it from dropping down on one side and allow me to lift up the other side. Where's my hammer gone is next question. Okay, my hammer was exactly where I left it, on the tool board. Oddly enough, I actually had it put away. So, there we go. It's just stuck in the studs, it's all... The aluminium heads on an MG or on a Beetle any day of the week. Oh, Jesus wept. Right, okay, and straight away it's as plain as day where the head gasket is blown. So here is the offending article, and I think it's pretty obvious where the damage is. So that is completely blown through. That said, as I said, it was not. There was no issue with the. There was no issue with the oil or water mixing or anything like that. So I'll just take this head gasket off. There we go. Well, that gap shouldn't be there. So that's what the problem is. Grand, right? Simple fix. Okay, so looking at the cylinder head here anyway, we can see how it is. I don't see any evidence of valve recession or anything like that there. So that's positive enough. Now, the only thing I am concerned about is, this camera doesn't do macro mode very well, but just looking there, I'm thinking there may be a crack. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit of I'm going to get a scraper, and I'm going to scrape the remains of the gasket away, and I'm going to have a look at it. Now, as I said, I'm not going to be using this head on this car, but I would still like the option of using it on the other car when it comes time putting the engine together again. So it would be a bit of a shame if it is cracked anyway. But yeah, nonetheless, what we can do is we'll have a preliminary look at it, and if we need to replace it, fair enough. If it needs to be skimmed, we can get that done. Or yeah, I mean, there's a few options here anyway. So let's just have a quick look, and then we will proceed to put everything back together, clean everything up, put everything back together with the new head gasket, and that should be the job. It looks a bit peculiar here. I'm just looking, I'm after cleaning this up with a wire wheel, and it actually looks like this head has been repaired at some point in the past along there. It's possible that that it was welded at that point, and although I might be wrong, I mean, that might just be the witness mark from where the head gasket was actually blown. Either way, I'm going to have to get it in and get it NDT'd and get it professionally tested and all that sort of stuff. So I won't be putting this, I wouldn't be all that happy about putting this head back on one way or another. What I will be doing is putting the other head on. Okay, so the good news is, looking at the cylinder block, there is little or no wear there whatsoever. The honing marks are even still visible, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, tiniest little ridge, but I mean, that's going to happen, like. So yeah, I'm really happy with that now. Anyway, that's positive. So we need to obviously clean up the face of the block before we put the new gasket on and everything there. So that'll be a job for another day. But through the miracle of editing, you guys will never know. Alright, so it's the following day, and I'm really happy with how much I've accomplished so far. Actually, in the space of 2 hours, I got the head off and got everything prepped and everything like that. Now, the only thing I need to do now is I need to clean everything. And when I say I've got everything prepped, I got all the bits together that I'll need. But yeah, so I'm going to clean everything now, and I want to give the cylinder head itself a lick of black paint. I have engine enamel there, so I may as well just try and kind of dicky it up a little bit before I fit it to the car. And yeah, I just want to give the carbs a once over. Now I'll just explain to you what I'm using as far as cleaning processes are concerned. I'm not going to show you every little boring detail of it, to be honest with you. You can see the end result afterwards, but the main kind of details are this. For cleaning the block, I'm going to use this roll-lock disc on the pneumatic die grinder, and it doesn't shed any material, and on a cast iron block it's absolutely fine. I probably wouldn't go that aggressive on an aluminium block, but this cast iron, in fairness, to call it agricultural would be an understatement. So I have blue paper down, obviously down the bores, and I have each of the cylinders down halfway down their stroke. So yeah, that'll kind of keep things all right there. And then I'm gonna, when I finish tidying everything up there, I'm going to wipe it all down with acetone or brake cleaner or something along those lines. I'll see what I have. As far as the likes of the intake manifold are concerned, I'm going to use a wire wheel on the drill. I'm going to tidy all that up there. For the rocker shaft, I'm just going to use a little bit of cleaning solution for mechanical parts. I'm going to just tidy that up a little bit. Just give it a superficial clean. I'm not going to go too mad on it. Same with the push rods, just give them a little bit of a wipe down. Fasteners, nuts and bolts, all that sort of stuff, I'm going to just give them a go on the wire wheel on my grinder here, my bench grinder. And as I said, with the carburetors, I'm literally just going to take off the dash pots and the float bowl covers. Just make sure there's not any nasty surprises in there. Give them a little bit of a wipe out and a tidy up and put them back together. Make sure the linkages and all that are free and not too gummed up. So yeah. The other thing as well too, I think I will give the rocker cover a belt of a rattle can or something like that at the very least, just to kind of take the rough look off that as well. As I said, cylinder head is pretty much ready to go. There's a light coating of oil on it there just to stop it from flash rusting. So that's going to get all wiped down before we put it on the car. As I said, same situation there. You know, I mean, just give it a wipe with a bit of brake clean, and then I will get the engine enamel onto that. Let it dry, and it doesn't need to be a perfect job, but you know, I'll get it reasonably good. There's the gasket set I have for it. It's the pay-end gasket I'm going to use. There is a multi-layer steel gasket available for these, but this car really does not need it. It's not like the MGF Rover K Series engine, which benefited a lot from that. Okay, so on with the show. As I said, there's no need to go mental with this. Just basically light touch and just take the crap off without going mad and gouging into the metal. Thinking this blue paper is not going to work. No, it's making more of a mess than it's actually helping. What I'll do is I'll get a shop vac and suck out any crap that goes down in there afterwards without moving the cylinder, so it'll be all right. It's just brake cleaner. Sorry about the noise of the compressor in the background. It is a workshop though, so I'm sure you'll forgive me. You see that's coming up pretty good now, you know. I mean, look, get it as clean as you can, but don't be too paranoid. I mean, you don't want any debris on it or anything like that, but like, to be honest with you, so long as you it feels smooth and that, you should be all right. I've got to keep at it and I'll bring you back when I'm finished. Personally, I think this is looking pretty damn good now, to tell you the truth. So I'm just giving a final little wipe with a dry piece of blue roll, just to make sure that no residue remains. I've given it a couple of wipes of brake cleaner already, so and I've cleaned out the bores already, so should be pretty good at that. So give them a couple more wipes. You know, cleanliness is the most important part of this job. If you're not willing to be meticulous and clean about it, don't bother doing it, because you're only going to end up doing it again, or getting somebody else to do it. But I can't get over how good those bores are, how clean they are. I mean, realistically, to be honest with you, this seems to be a very low mileage engine. So the only thing I'm thinking is, I was looking there actually, I noticed there before I went in last night, the radiator has a date stamp on it. QC passed on June 2018, so actually 2019. So the radiator has been replaced fairly recently. So I would imagine what happened is the radiator burst and the head gasket went as a result of that. But because of the fact that the because of the fact that the head gasket was only gone between the two cylinders, they may have just thought, okay, it's degraded performance or it's cracked the head or something like that, and never kind of did any further investigation. And then the car was taken off the road as a result of that, as much as anything else. Now, I know the owner has unfortunately got Alzheimer's, so which is unfortunate to hear. But yeah, he's like, this was his pride and joy, you know. So I mean, I'm trying to do right by him. Like, in fairness, the man is 84 years old. I mean, what can you do? Like, I mean, I now own this car and I'm delighted with it, and I can see that he poured his heart and soul into it. So I'm absolutely thrilled. So I'm certainly not going to complain about anything that he did in the past. You know, I don't feel like I was sold a pup. To be honest with you, even with the blown head gasket, I still think I got a bargain. I mean, it wasn't a bargain. Like, it wasn't like a steal, but I think everybody got a good deal in the end. So yeah. Anyway, right. That's enough waffle. So yeah, that's that block is ready to go. The head is ready to go. So now I'm going to just clean everything else up, and like, I'd literally be happy enough to throw the head gasket onto that there now. Actually, one thing I do want to do is I just want to clean the face of the exhaust manifold, although they're pretty good now, to be honest with you. And I'll be putting the gasket on them anyway. No point in introducing unnecessary dirt. I might do it. I'll have a think. I think that's going to look pretty smart now when I fit it. There might surface rust on the top, in fairness. It's a cast iron lump of a yoke, so it'll be grand. Anyway, by the time it's all coated in oil and all that, it's not going to rust any further. So yeah, that's that done. So I'm going to give the rocker cover the same treatment. Okay, so I've got everything that needs to be cleaned in order to put the cylinder head on. So you'll see the cylinder head in behind me here, and we'll have a look at that now in a minute. But I've also got the intake manifold done, and the rocker shaft as well is done, and the block, I'd literally lick it and I'd be all right. You know, it's as clean as it's ever going to be. So yeah, I'll just walk you through where we are now. So you can see there the face of the head is nice and clean. It's gotten a lick of paint and everything as well, so it's going to look smart. You'll see now with these here, actually, these are the studs that the nuts didn't come off. Now, in theory, I should take the nuts off, actually, with them off the car. But to be honest with you, I tried on one of them and it was stitched on. So rather than gronching up the stud completely, I'm actually just going to put them in like that and torque them against the block. Look, there's going to be nothing in the difference between doing it that way or doing it the other way. I know it's not technically the correct way, but look, it'll work. I also have the intake manifold cleaned up there as well, and the rocker shaft, I just really gave it a light clean. I sprayed it with WD-40 and just gave it a bit of a wipe with a cloth just to take any heavy oil deposits off, but you can see how clean it is. I mean, it's absolutely fine. There's nothing that needs to be done with that, really. I even moved the rockers along the shaft, and there's no wear step in there or anything like that, so that rocker shaft is fine. I have yet to look at the carburetors. I haven't opened them up yet or anything like that. I want to clean up the linkages, do all that sort of stuff. And the same with the thermostat housing as well. I just want to give that a belt of a wire wheel, get that all cleaned up. And you can see here the way I have the bags all done up. So that's the bolts for the rocker shaft, rocker cover, manifolds, stat housing, heater valve, carbs. So yeah, and then these are all the ones for the head, which I've taken out of the bag and cleaned. So without further ado, let's get our gasket out, position it, and pop our head on. Here's the new gasket. You can't go too far wrong with it. It says top there and front here. So long as you position it there with that at the front and this bit on the top, then you're not going to have a problem. So drop that on like that. Just keep it flat and it'll go over the studs nice and easy for you. So there we go. That's nicely in position there now. And the next thing to do is to put our cylinder head on. So let's do that. All right, so that's the head now in position. So let's start putting the rocker, the push rods in. That's the next thing to do. Again, all I did really with these is I just kind of gave them a cursory sort of wipe down. So I'm going to put them into the correct order. The bonnet kind of makes a strange echo sound while I'm talking to you here. Now don't forget folks, this is the cylinder head of the purple MG. So this one actually has a bit more mileage on it than the other one. And don't worry about any surface rust or anything like that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to coat any of the studs with a little bit of anti-seize as well, just to make sure that they go down nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to loosely put in the studs with the nuts still on into the holes where they go. So we're not going to tighten them down yet, obviously, but just so that they're in position. And I just put a little bit of grease on the thread to them as well, just to make sure that they go down nicely. Now I can't put this one on yet because the rocker shaft has to go on first. But that's what we're going to do next anyway, so I'll go and get it ready. Now I just want to give a special mention to David Russell Wilkes, who's got an excellent channel on YouTube which covers a lot of material about MGBs. Granted, his car is modified, but you can still learn a lot from him. And to be honest with you, I studied his video before kind of going into this, as well as looking at the workshop manual obviously as well. But kind of first-hand information like that is invaluable, to tell you the truth. So he's very, very good. But worth checking out. Okay, so there we go. So now there is an anti-rotation tab that goes on that one there as well, on the last one. And we're just going to put the nuts on very loosely on them. We don't do them up until we've done the head bolts. Okay, so now I'm going to put the nuts and washers on the rest of the head studs. Okay, so I have the torquing sequence written down here on a piece of cardboard, the one that the head gasket was in actually. And I am going to go through these at 25 foot-pounds first of all, and then we're going to go up to 54, okay? So starting with this one here, this is number 1. Okay, and then number 2 is over here. Okay, that's numbers 1 to 11 all torqued down now. So we are going to increase our torque on our torque wrench to 54 now, and we're going to give them the final torque. Then after maybe after a couple of heat cycles on the engine, you have to retorque them. Okay, so that's them all torqued. We're going to just go through them again with the torque wrench on the same setting. Just going to double check and make sure we got them all, and then I'm going to torque up our rocker shaft nuts as well. And then I'm going to rotate the engine over by hand a couple of times after I've put some engine oil in it. Wouldn't you know it, I'm after coming up on a showstopper. It's just as well I spotted this, wait until you see. This block on the rocker shaft is different to the one that I have on the other head. If you see in there, the oil port is uncovered, and that oil should be going up in through that block into the rocker shaft. If I were to run the engine without that, the rocker shaft would get starved of oil, and that would be a game over for the engine. So yeah, really glad I spotted that. The plan would be to take the block in question off the rocker shaft from the other engine, but the problem is I dropped the whole assembly into an engine machine shop to get the bushes replaced in the rockers, and so I don't have it. It's really annoying. So yeah, that's kind of where I have to stop now at this point in time. But I'm going to make this all one video anyway. I'll try and run up in the next day or two and collect those bits off them. Even that one block means that I can take the rocker shaft off. It means I have to take the head bolts out. But such is life anyway. Look, it's not the end of the world. At least I spotted it anyway. So yeah, what I can do though is I can rotate the engine over by hand at this point in time and just make sure that everything is rotating freely. And at least we know then we're kind of we're within the ballpark, and we just have to rectify that issue before we continue on. Okay, so let's just see how. Make sure everything is rotating as it should. Okay. I'm annoyed about that now. I was really I was looking forward to throwing a bit of oil into it and cranking it over and seeing how it sounded compression wise, but obviously I can't do that now. But yeah, anyway. Ah well, right. that'll do for the moment. I'll bring it back when I have the part anyway. I'm not going to make this into 2 videos. Doesn't it look good though with its painted rocker cover and everything there now? Once I have all the rest of the bits on, that'll look the part. Right, so I saved you the rigmarole of taking out the rocker shaft, but basically here's the 2 blocks. This is the one I took off, so you can see the base of it there and spot the difference. See the way the oil port is offset? So that's the one we need to fit. So it's just as well, as I said, I noticed, because if I hadn't noticed, the rocker shaft would have ended up being starved of oil. Okay, so the rocker shaft is all back in and back together. Valves are all adjusted, and you'll see I gave everything a bit of a lick of paint in here actually as well. Just kind of went around the areas I could get to with a brush, to tell you the truth. And it just took the rough look off it, and it makes it just look that bit nicer, you know. I even took the time to polish up the dash pots on the carbs as well a little bit. Again, I didn't go mad on them, but you know, I mean, while I had them off, it's a handy little thing to do. At a later stage, I'll probably go over them with a bit of Brasso or something like that, and they come up nicely then. So I'm firing the plugs in loosely here now, and what I'm going to do is then throw the engine oil in. I'm going to try and crank it over and see how she's all sounding, and yeah, hopefully it's not missing a beat this time. I'd be a little bit surprised if it was, to tell you the truth. But yeah, I have to say now, I'm actually really enjoying working on this car. It's I forgot how nice MGs are to work on. Like, they're a lovely car to work on. Just everything's accessible and easy by comparison to a Beetle, to be honest with you. Beetles are a pain in the face to work on, to tell you the truth, most of the time. And I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but that's my own personal belief. Anyway, right, so that's that. So next thing to do, put the rocker cover on and fill it up with oil. Of course, it's got a new gasket on. So, as I said, I got a full top-end gasket kit. So, again, gave that a little bit of a lick of paint there as well. What I'd like to do is actually get the stickers for the engine bay. But what I'm going to do now is just throw the nuts onto that, and as I said, put the oil in. Okay, so obviously we're not finished yet, but the rocker cover's on, the spark plugs are in, and obviously it's not connected as well. There's no coolant in the engine, but there is oil in it. I've got the fuel line blocked off because there's no carburetors and the exhaust is not connected. But it's good enough for us to crank it over and see how it sounds from that perspective. So yeah, let's do that. Your microphone is in with the engine there anyway, so see how it sounds and you can report back. Okay, I'm just waiting until we got oil pressure, and we got oil pressure there. The battery's a bit low, so I have a new battery to go into this car. But yeah, it's sounding good. There's no untoward noises or anything like that, so yeah, happy days. It's hitting on all 4 there now at the moment. So yeah, now I do, if you remember, I said earlier on in this video that I was going to put the old oil back into it. I did do that because the old oil was literally, the engine had never even started with it in it. I literally had just used it to do the compression test. Now the old oil was a bit blackened because it had mixed with the old oil, if you know what I mean. But it was fine, and what I'm going to do is I'll run the engine for a couple of 100 miles and have some fresh oil ordered and everything like that to throw into it, and a new filter and everything as well. So it'll be well looked after in that respect, so don't worry. Next thing to do is to refit the carburetors and the exhaust, and then at that stage we're kind of at a position where we can actually start it. Only for a short period of time because there still won't be any coolant. Mind you, I could actually probably put the coolant in as well because I have a heater valve for it. I have a new heater valve to go on, and I just need to clean up the stat housing and everything. I'm kind of running out of time at this stage of the day, but I'll see what I can get done today. For you, through the miracle of editing, you need never know, but for me, it's frustrating because I really want to see this engine run. Okay, now I know I said I wasn't going to refit the asbestos gasket, but what I actually did was I painted it to keep the dust vapors from flying, the dust particles from flying as much. So I'm going to take my chances, to tell you the truth. So anyway, I gave the manifold, the intake manifold, a bit of a clean. I never did anything with the exhaust manifold, to tell you the truth, but look, it's alright. It's under the heat shield, you won't see it too much. I took the time to torque the manifold nuts as well. They're 15 foot-pounds, so you know, I mean, these type of things, they can make all the difference, and it really doesn't take a huge amount of time to do, in fairness. Okay, so now that everything is ready and the gaskets are on, everything's torqued up and everything like that, it's now time to put the carburetors on. Now, I gave the carburetors a superficial clean just externally, took the float bowls off, made sure that they were nice and clean internally as well, and took the dash pots off, cleaned out the inside of the bore of the housing, and just basically made sure that they were serviceable before going back on. So they are, and they're absolutely fine. In actual fact, they were pretty spotless inside anyway, so I didn't really have to do much with them. They certainly don't need a rebuild. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fit the carburetors. I don't know where the throttle return spring has gone, but I'll procure one at some point or another. For the moment, let's get them on. We can worry about that afterwards. The noise in the background is my young lad having a bit of a play, so there we go. You'll see I have a new fuel hose there, and that's all good. And what we're going to do now is, before we start tightening up anything, what we need to do is we need to make sure all the nuts and washers are on, because the ones down the bottom, you can't get them on if the top ones were tightened, for example. So yeah, we need to just make sure that that's right, and then we can start kind of plumbing everything up, and then once we connect up to HD leads, she should start. So let's see how we get on. Okay, so I spent enough time fumbling around there trying to get those nuts on, and trying to bite my tongue to stop myself from swearing because the little lad is here, but they're on now. The two top ones are fine, it's the bottom ones are just awkward as hell to get at. But they're on now, and I'm just tightening everything up, and then we can start connecting our hoses, and I'm going to replace the fuel filter while we're at it as well. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not until I get fresh fuel in the tank. There is no point in putting fresh fuel through or putting old fuel through a fuel filter. Oh, mind you, it's clean enough. Yes. What do you think? Yeah, I think so. I think we'll just put the filter and the fuel lines on now, and at least that way then that's that done. You can drive it. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so I did something really annoying and put the linkage for the choke upside down, so that's going to wreck my head because I have to fix that. Meaning I have to take one of the carbs off, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, right, look, that's neither here nor there for the moment. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to crank it over and see, will it run? Those famous YouTube words, will it run? Yes, it will. Thanks very much, Owen. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Let's put you guys with your microphone down here and you can have a listen. Oh, hang on. Helps if you put the HT leads on first. That's why you number them, folks. Now, there's no coolant in it, so I can't run it for any length of time, but we can run it for a minute. Oh, let's just put that vacuum line on as well for the brake booster. Okay, so now we might have more luck because we're not going to have a massive vacuum leak, and we have our HT leads connected. So let's see what happens. Take my gloves off. First things first, we'll turn it on and see if there's any fuel leaks, because the fuel pump is electric in these, don't forget. Okay, so we'll let everything fill up. There's the fuel filter filling up. Okay, so now, what do you think, Owen?
Well, guys, it's kind of start.
Okay, well, stand back and let's have a look.
Right. Okay, then.
Just crank it without giving it a whole bootful first of all and see how we get on. Owen, stand back.
Uh-oh.
I think we're going to need a better battery apart apart from anything else.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
That's a battery.
I have a brand new battery for it. Now's the time to put it in. Okay, so we have a new battery in it. So yeah, let's give it a shot and see how we get on. Not a kick out of it. Let's have a look and see what's going on. Aha! The king lead is off for some reason. Obviously disconnected it while I was doing something else. Anyway, that's back on now. So yeah, now we should have a bit more luck. Let's see how things go.
Go on.
Hey, now we're in business.
That's what it lights up.
It's getting there.
Yes!
That's not sounded too bad at all, folks. Now it still needs to tune up, okay? So can you stop shouting, please? It still needs to tune up, so we still have to do that to dial in our timing properly, to adjust the carbs and all that sort of stuff. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's running, and it's running on 4 cylinders. More importantly, picking up lovely. And you wonder why I bring my son out to see this. He loves this sort of stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. I've no oil in the dash pot, so the carbs will be spitting and everything. Okay. Carbs are a mile out of balance apart from anything else, so that's one thing we need to check. Okay, so we're at the point now where we're filling up the cooling system, and literally it's just a case of pouring water into the head through this port here. Okay, I'm just going to walk you through where we're at so far. You'll have to excuse the noise in the background. That's my young lad playing with his car. Now you'll see I have a new heater valve on here. Okay, I bought a new one because they're always rotten inside. The diaphragm is always burst, and to be honest with you, even if it isn't, it's only going to be a matter of time before it does. So anyway, I have that in place, hose on, and I have filled this with, there is coolant in there as well. It's just the water is at the top and the coolant's at the bottom. I'm letting the engine do the mixing. So yeah, so that's that basically filled up, and radiator hose is up like that, and our expansion bottle's open. Okay, so the next thing to do is I'm going to put the gasket on here with a bit of flange sealant. The flange sealant is like RTV, but it never kind of fully sets. I'm going to put that on with flange sealant, and I'm going to stick the thermostat in and the housing on, and we're going to put that hose on, and we'll fill up our expansion bottle, and then we'll start and run the engine and get it all properly bled. Okay, so there's the thermostat anyway, so we're going to drop that in first of all, obviously, and that's going to sit there. You'll see the little thermostat. The thermostat actually has a little thingy on it there for letting the air out. It's just a tiny little piece at the side, so that's actually going to let the air out and let a little bit of coolant through as well. Okay, so that's the first thing to do, is to put that in. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our flange sealant. That's this stuff here. Okay, and like I said, it's sort of like RTV, but it never fully sets. It kind of stays sort of rubbery and tacky. And this is what I like to use. I might actually just put it on the gasket instead of on the instead of on the head. And you don't need to go mad on it, just a little smear. You need to use something here really, folks. I know people say, oh, just install it dry or whatever. That's just asking for trouble with these, to be honest. If you manage to put this on dry and don't have any leaks, you can consider yourself very fortunate. Okay, so for each of these fasteners, we have a flat washer, spring washer, and a nut. And you know what I'm actually going to do, folks, is I'm going to have a look in the manual and see what the torque is supposed to be on these. And I'm actually going to torque these up because this is a real well-known leak point for these engines, and if we can avoid a leak here, then happy days. By the way, the coolant I'm using is ethylene glycol based, which is seemingly the best coolant type for these particular engines. The OAT coolant is it can harm the cast iron block or the seals and that inside the engine. So the ethylene glycol is what this engine would have been designed for. So that's what we're going to use. Okay, so the coolant system is now full of water and coolant, obviously. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and start the engine. I also have the heater valve fully open there as well, so that should circulate any coolant through the heater matrix there too. So let's kick this pig. Tuning is going to be another episode, by the way, folks. Okay, so let's see how everything is circulating now. Sounds good anyway. I'm going to just burp the radiator hoses basically. What I'll do is I'll open the stat housing there at the top and pour a bit more water in there. For God's sake! The bloody radiator valve, or the heater valve, is fiddling out. Where the hell is that coming from? I wonder if the Jubilee clip is needing a tighten. No, it is absolutely spraying out the back of the heater valve. I must have pinched the gasket or something. Can't leave it like that anyway. Ah, yeah. Sure, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. It's actually spraying out, like. Yeah, let the pressure off the system. Okay, well, that stopped the spraying anyway, but still though. Oh yeah. Alright, so look, I pinched the gasket down there. In fairness, you get the basic idea. I was working away up the front while that was all happening down the back of the car, so I didn't even notice until it was until all that had happened. But anyway, look, it's just a little thing for me to sort out, and I'll top up the coolant and all will be good. And in the next video about this car, you'll see it all being sorted and that. So yeah, listen, let's wrap up there. I'm really happy with how this is all shaped up. Next thing to do is to give the engine a final tune-up and basically get it all working 100%. And yeah, look, it's got a new head gasket in it, so happy days. Listen, thanks a lot for joining me, folks. I hope this video was entertaining for you, and there's plenty more to be done in this car. I mean, this is only really just scratching the surface, so to speak. So we will be we'll be continuing on from this point, and hopefully in the not too distant future, getting it out on the open road. So yeah, please do hit the subscribe button before you go, and if you hit the notification bell as well, anytime I upload more content, either about this car or any of my other projects on the go, you'll get a notification and you can join me on my journey. So listen, chat to you soon. Thanks for watching.